Thank you. It's great to be here. Thank you guys all for coming out. These Q&As have been a really important part of Facebook's culture and how we operate. For a lot of years, I've had an open Q&A with the people who work at Facebook inside our company every Friday. And it's been a really important thing for us, not just so I can communicate with everyone who's working on our products, but also so I can hear from our community what people are thinking about, and that gives us more ideas and kind of helps focus what we work on. So a little while ago, we decided to try to do this with our community as well. So about once a month, we've had these town hall Q&As. This is the third one that we've done, or that we're doing. This is the first one outside of our headquarters and first international one, so it's awesome to be here. And my hope for this Q&A is similar to the ones that we've been doing so far. It's not only so that I can have a chance to answer your questions, but also, as importantly, so I can hear from you what's important to you when you use Facebook and all of our products and what you'd like to see us build, so I can take that back and work on those things to serve our community even better. So thank you all for coming out. I think we went over how this is going to work, so we can just dive into the first question. But it's great to be here in Bogota.
Thanks, Mark. Before we start, I'm going to give you a little bit of information and explain how this is going to work. We have a lot of questions that came through the page. We have questions, video questions that were sent to us as well. And of course, we have questions from the room. We have about an hour for our Q&A. We're going to start with a question sent by Oscar Dueñas. He's from Bogota, Colombia. He sent us a question, and he happens to be in the room today to ask the question by himself.
Hello, Mark. Thank you for choosing us in this Q&A session. My question is, how to bring free internet access to all the people in the world, especially in countries like Colombia, where connectivity is still a big business?
This is a very timely question, because this is actually why I'm in Colombia today, to announce the launch of Internet.org and free basic internet services to everyone in Colombia, in partnership with President Santos and the government and the telephone network operator Tigo. So what we're doing is making it so now, for the first time ever in Colombia, anyone, even if you haven't paid for a data plan, can get access to some free basic internet services. So on your phone, you can use things like tools for finding jobs, or health information, or education tools, or communication tools like Facebook and messaging, or reference materials like Wikipedia. And I think that this is a really big step forward in terms of helping to connect everyone. Now, how this connects to what Facebook does overall is our mission is to help connect everyone in the world, right, and help people share. And what we figured out a couple of years ago was that we were helping to connect people in a lot of different countries, but it turns out that most people in the world don't have internet access yet, right? Which was kind of hard for me to wrap my head around originally, because everyone who I knew, all my friends who develop products are all on the internet. So it was kind of shocking to me when I learned that only about a third of people in the world are on the internet total. So in order to achieve our mission of helping to connect everyone in the world, we have to solve this. And it's not the type of problem that any one company or government or network operator can solve by themselves, but in partnership, we can help tackle the big barriers that are preventing people from getting on the internet. And there are three major barriers that we've had to focus on. The first is physical access to connectivity. So some people, even if you had a phone, you do not live within range of a cell phone signal. In Colombia, that's usually not the case. You have, there's very good infrastructure here throughout most of the country, and a lot of networks who support that. The next barrier is economic, right? So some people have access to it and can get a signal, but can't afford to access the internet. And you know, that affects, that's a lot of people. I mean, that's maybe 1 billion people or more in the world. But it actually turns out that the biggest set of people who are not on the internet today, the reason why they're not on yet is just because even though they can actually afford some data access, they may not have had exposure to internet services, and they may not know why they would want to get on the internet. So, for example, think about this. If you grew up and you didn't have a computer and you never had access to the internet, and then you saw an ad that was saying, hey, buy a data plan, you might wonder why you wanted to buy that and what you could do on the internet. So that's kind of what internet.org is all about. It's giving people free basic services, so that way even before you pay to access the internet, you can access a lot of the most important stuff, tools for jobs and health and education and local information, and here in Colombia, e-governance tools and communication tools and reference materials. And you can get all that for free, and then if you want to access more, then you can pay on top of that. So part of your question was, how do we make it so that everyone can get full access to the internet for free? And I don't think that that's actually possible, because it turns out that the infrastructure to build all, like what supports the internet, all the pipes and the fiber, people invest hundreds of billions of dollars a year across the world in building that. So at some point, someone needs to pay to make that, to pay for that, or else it can't just be built for free. But what we can do is make it so that everyone in the world can get some basic services for free, and that's what internet.org is doing, and we're really excited today to announce this in Colombia.
Second question comes, it's one of the top questions from the thread, and comes from Ron Holmes from St. Petersburg, Florida. The question is, can you install, and I've read these buttons, so we won't continue to see posts that we've already read several times?
Yeah, so this is an interesting question. You know, there are often a lot of people who write in and who ask different questions about why certain things show up in newsfeed and others don't. So I think that that's what this question is asking about is, you know, sometimes you'll experience that you'll have seen a story, maybe a friend will have posted a photo of something that they're doing, and you'll see it, and then you'll scroll past it, and then someone else will comment on it, and there will be a discussion, so then we'll bump that back to the top of newsfeed. And I think what you're asking is basically is why do we do that, and can you just mark stuff as read so that way you don't see it anymore? There actually is a way in the corner of stories you can say that you don't want to see something anymore. But the broader picture here is, why do we do ranking in newsfeed, right? One of the big questions that people often ask is, why don't we just show things in chronological order? And the answer is that, you know, if you have, you know, 100 or 200 friends on Facebook, there are probably hundreds or even 1,000 or more things that your friends will post in a day that are kind of possible stories that you might see on Facebook. But the problem is that most people don't spend their whole day on Facebook, and instead they only are looking at a small number of stories. So we want to make sure that you see the most important stuff, right? And that you have the most valuable experience for the limited time that you're going to spend in this product as possible. So let's say, for example, today, this is timely because one of my coworkers who is leading the part of the internet.org initiative and overall spreading Facebook and connectivity around the world, he actually just had a child 2 hours ago. So he couldn't be here. He wanted to be here, but he had to cancel at the last minute. So he posted a photo right this morning of his new beautiful baby daughter. And if I had missed that, I would have been very sad, right? And you know, if we just ranked everything chronologically, then maybe I would have not seen that, and I would have seen something else that someone posted that was just much less important. And so that's why we rank things in newsfeed, and that's why when people engage and comment and there's new activity, we sometimes bump that back up to the top if we think you're going to be interested in that. We've run a bunch of tests to see if people like better if we don't rank newsfeed. It turns out that even though sometimes some people ask for us not to rank it, actually people complain more when we stop ranking it. So we think that the ranking, it's always a work in progress, and we always are taking feedback, and you know, you all tell us what you like and what you don't like, and we try to improve and make that better. But that's part of how newsfeed works today, and we think that that's the best way that we can serve the community.
Next question, also from the thread, comes from Pakistan, is from Zain Shah. And the question is, you've never spoken out about the Peshawar attack or Palestine or Iraq war. I thought you were having a neutral stand on all this. But then I saw your status about France, the incident in France. Your words carry a lot of importance. Would you like to explain your stance on not speaking about other incidents?
Sure. So all of these terrorist events are terrible, right? And I don't think it should take me or anyone else speaking on that to be very clear globally that all of these different attacks going on around the world are just really bad, terrible, and horrible for different societies, horrible for kind of peace in the world. And we really need to do whatever we can as a society to try to prevent that and block them. Now, there are certain topics that I speak about, mostly things that are related to Facebook's mission in some capacity and our efforts to try to help everyone, to help connect the world and give everyone a voice. And that's why these attacks in France were especially relevant, I thought, for me to speak about, was because it wasn't just a terrorist attack about just trying to do some damage and make people afraid and hurt people. This was specifically about people's freedom of expression and ability to say what they want, right? And this specific attack was an attack to silence someone who had said something that offended someone else. And this is a lot of what Facebook is doing in the world, is we're trying to connect the world and we're trying to give everyone a voice. And there are lots of different things that can stand in the way of you having a voice and the freedom to express whatever you want, right? I mean, a government can pass a law blocking you from saying something. You can just not have the tools that you need in order to express what you want, right? I mean, if you don't have the internet, then it's hard to post on the internet, obviously. If you don't have a good camera, it's hard to post photos, even if you technically have the right to do so. But even if your laws allow you to share something and you have the tools to do so, if we live in a society of fear, where if you then exercise your right and your ability to speak, and you live in fear that you're going to get hurt because some extremist somewhere is going to not like what you say and might take that out on you and hurt you or kill you or your family, then that's not freedom of expression either. And that really gets to the core of what Facebook and the internet are, I think, and what we're all here to do. We really stand up and try to make it so that everyone can have as much of a voice as possible, which, I mean, there are limits and restrictions on these things, but across the board, we generally are always trying to fight to help as many people as possible share as much as they want. And this event just seemed like an event where people needed to come together not only to fight back against terrorism, which I think is the response anytime there's a terrorist attack anywhere in the world, but also to stand up for giving everyone in the world a voice and people's right to give as many people as possible the ability to share as many things as possible. So that's why I spoke on this one, but it doesn't mean that I don't feel very strongly about the other terrorist attacks. They're all terrible, and we need to come together as a society and a community to try to stop that.
Jaime Reyes is from Bogota, and he sent us a question. He happens to be here this afternoon.
Hello, Mark. Regarding that what you said, would Facebook have the will to break a law within a country that doesn't permits like the freedom of speech in order to empower the people and make a change for themselves? Thank you.
These are good questions. This really gets to the heart of our mission and who we are, right? Why we're here. We want to help connect everyone, and we want to give people a voice, right? So we want to give as many people as possible the ability to express as much as possible. And like I was just saying a second ago, there are lots of different things that can stand in the way of that, right? So one thing that you just gave as an example is a government passing a law saying you can't say this type of thing, right? Another thing that can get in the way of people's ability to express themselves is if people don't have the tools to say what they want, to stay in touch with the people they want, or to express those things. And then there are other things like extremism and terrorism, which we were just talking about, which also can prevent people and cause them to self-censor themselves and not express things, even if they have the legal right and the tools to do so out of fear. So one of the big questions that we struggle with is, in an ideal world, there would be way fewer laws restricting speech, and everyone would have way better tools, including everyone in the world would have the internet, which is what we're trying to do with internet.org. And there would be no terrorism, so people wouldn't be afraid of this. But the reality is most countries actually do have laws restricting some form of speech or another. We're far from having the ideal tools everywhere, and we need to fight for that and continue building these tools and pushing for things like internet.org and pushing back on social issues. So the real question is, how do you navigate this? And I think when you ask a question like this of how do we feel about breaking a law in a country in order to fight for that, the real question that we weigh is, does that actually give more people the ability to express more things? And the problem is that if you break the law in a country, then oftentimes that country will just block the whole service entirely. So which then makes it so that millions of people are now deprived of the tools that they were using to communicate with their friends and their family and to express as much as possible. So it becomes a very tricky calculus. We try to push back, and any time that we get any request to block something, we review every request to make sure that we'll respect the laws, but we want to make sure that every request that we get is within the laws that we get. And that's basically how we try to measure this. Is at each step along the way, our philosophy is to try to make it so that we give as many people as much power to express themselves as possible. And one more thing that I'd add is that I can't think of many examples in history where a company not operating or shutting down in a country in protest of a law like that has actually changed the law. However, there are a lot of examples that I can think of where a technology operating in a place, whether it's telephones or the internet, enables a lot of opportunity for people in those places, right? Opportunity to stay connected to the people they love and their family and their friends, business opportunity, growth in the economy, improvement of people's lives. So I think overwhelmingly, our responsibility is actually to try to continue pushing to give as many people the ability to share as much as possible. There's one more thing that I want to add on this, which is that some people, I think, when you ask a question like that, when we say that we're not just willing to break a law and be shut down, some people say that that's because, oh, well, we want to be operating in every country because it's good for our business. And I want to push back on that because the reality is we're not operating in every country today. There are several countries that we're not in, and our business is doing just fine, right? Believe me, we're good. And the reality is if we got blocked in a few more countries, that probably wouldn't affect our business very much. So this is really about our mission and our philosophy, not about just kind of some short-term business decision. I really very deeply believe that we're best serving the world and best delivering on our mission to connect everyone and give everyone a voice and give as many people as much expression as possible by continuing to push in these environments and push for as much expression as possible.
We're now going to take a couple of questions from the room. Who would like to ask the first question? Stand up. You have to introduce yourself. I hold them.
Okay. Hello, Mark. My name is Catalina. I'm a physician. I work in telemedicine, and I truly believe that Facebook could be a very great tool to change the way we provide healthcare. So my question for you would be, what are your thoughts on Facebook and healthcare and providing actual real-time healthcare services using Facebook? Thank you.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. One of the things that's great about our internet.org announcement this morning is that it includes some health tools in it, right? So as part of this, there's at least one service where people can, I think, I don't know if it's real time, but it's to interact with a real doctor for free over the internet and have access to that for free without having to pay for a data plan or anything like that. And I think that's really powerful. Now, that's not really Facebook or social media as much as it is just Facebook working in partnership with the government and with Tigo, the network operator here, in order to make it so that those services can be available for free. But still, it's something that we worked on and made possible. So I'm proud of that. Overall, I do think that there are very interesting things that happen across Facebook. People form all kinds of communities. There are more than 700 million people who use groups on Facebook, and a lot of people use it as support groups if people share a health condition. People use Facebook to raise awareness for their friends who need an organ donation, or if they need a blood transfusion or bone marrow. That's like every month or so, I'll see some petition or someone sharing something. So people are already using these tools in order to raise awareness for these things. And I don't doubt that there are probably tools that we can do to make it even easier for those people to do those things. And I'd love to do that over time.
We're going to take another question from the room. More hands. We're going to go over here. Introduce yourself.
What?
Introduce yourself.
Yeah. Hello, Mark. My name is Estefania. I'm from ISEC. My question is, which do you think should be the role from young people in this challenge to connect the world, and how the people that are here can help in this challenge that we have to connect? Thank you.
Well, the biggest thing that I think a lot of folks here can do, well, if you're young and you're learning and kind of thinking about what you want to do as part of your career, what I would encourage you to consider is engineering and programming. Right? I think it's one of the biggest areas for economic growth across the whole world. And I think that people, especially younger folks who are kind of just getting started and have the time to learn all these skills, can really help shape the next generation of tools that people use. One of the things that's awesome about the technology industry overall is you often don't need a lot of experience to make a pretty big impact. Right? When I got started with Facebook, I was 19 years old. Right? A lot of people who I know who built pretty awesome stuff were in their teens or early 20s, which means that you don't have to have a lot of work experience to do this. And I think that the technology industry is pretty unique in that way, in that you can have a big impact by learning about a specific set of technologies and exercising your creativity, and you can have a disproportionate impact on the next generation across the whole world. So I think that's an important thing. I think besides that, just encouraging your government and local folks to push for this. I mean, in Colombia, I think that the government has been very progressive and has been great leaders in terms of pushing to connect the whole country. Not every country is like this. So, I mean, for folks who are watching this Q&A on the live stream, I think that Colombia is in a lot of ways an example of what can be possible when a government pushes really hard to get full connectivity and infrastructure built across the country, and works with different companies like their network operators and us and Internet.org to try to deliver free services for everyone. And that wouldn't happen if they didn't hear from the citizens here that was important to people. So I think you're doing well here, doing well at that across the whole world, I think would really shape the world towards more connectivity as well.
We're now going back to the thread. This question is by Albeiro Saavedra Delgado. He's a Colombian living in Houston, Texas, and he wants to know, how much did you know about Colombia before this trip?
So this is my first time here. I'm really glad to be here. Thank you for having me. I've learned a little bit about all the biodiversity. I'm here partially to celebrate this milestone for Internet.org, and also just to celebrate how much the government and society here has pushed on connectivity for everyone. As far as the culture here goes, I mean, I'm a big fan of Shakira. A really big fan. Yeah, I guess that's about it. I mean, I don't speak Spanish, but I like her Spanish music. All right, next question.
Great. Now we have a video question sent to us by Jose Ariza from Bogotá.
A ver, la pregunta es la siguiente. ¿Cómo puede personas de escasos recursos poder llegar a adquirir un smartphone cuando en nuestro país hay un nivel de pobreza muy alto? Muchas gracias. Dios los bendiga.
So Jose basically is asking us, how can people, low-income people, get to buy a smartphone in countries where poverty is an issue?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and part of the challenge of connecting everyone in the world is people need both access to the internet and access to a phone or computer to use the internet. The reason why we've focused so much on the connectivity and the access part as opposed to the phone part is that when you think about the economics, the phone is actually a lot cheaper than how much you pay for data over the lifetime of owning the phone. So making it so that the data can be free or very cheap for people really reduces the overall cost of being on the internet, including getting a phone and whatever cost you have for data. So I guess part of the answer is that by making it so that there are free basic services available to everyone, you can now take whatever money you would have had to go spend on the data plan and put that all into a phone and get a better phone and get free access to an important part of the internet anyway. There's also an increasing number of technologies that are bringing the cost of phones down. There are now good smartphones that you can get for $50 or $75 that they're not as good as the top of the line phones, but you can run any app on them, right? Which is really important. And there are also technologies that Facebook and others have invested in building to run Facebook and a lot of the other biggest apps that people use, like WhatsApp, on phones that are not necessarily smartphones as well. And a lot of people do that, right? A lot of people have Nokia phones and use WhatsApp and have other phones that are not really smartphones but use Facebook and Messenger. And we want to do that to make it as cheap as possible for people to access the services that are most important to them for keeping in touch with people. But you're absolutely right that the overall cost of being connected is both the amount for the computer or the phone plus the overall data access. So once we have fully delivered worldwide on this partnership and promise of free basic services and connectivity, then we'll probably focus a lot more as well on just driving the price of the phones down pretty far as well.
So we go back to the room. I want to see hands up. Okay, we go to this gentleman here.
Hi, Mark. I'm a student of computer engineering, and I want to ask you something. You're trying to connect the world and trying to bring this new service here in Colombia. But in this service, to try to make the people happy with the service in terms of speed, how does this service works? I mean, yeah, I mean, like, yeah. Sí, como la experiencia, qué tan buena la experiencia.
Okay, given, if I understand well, is given the limitations, connectivity limitations, speed and stuff that may be in some countries, how good is going to be the experience of people using internet.org?
Yeah, it's a great question. One of the big issues, I think, for companies that build internet products for everyone to use is a lot of these companies are based in Silicon Valley. And in Silicon Valley, most of the internet connections are really fast, right? So then, so you have all these people who are building these apps who don't actually know what it's like for the people who are using them in all different parts of the world. And, a lot of people have like the latest iPhone and a fast internet connection and aren't necessarily aware of what kind of phones and network conditions exist all around the world in different countries. So one of the things that we've done at Facebook is made it so that we have this lab so that you can simulate what it's like to be on a network in India or Indonesia or Korea, where it's often faster than in the US, or any other country in the world. And we make it so that any company can come by and use this lab because we think that if the people who are developing a lot of this software had more empathy for what the conditions were actually like for people using it, then we think that it would actually get better. And we encourage all of our engineers and product managers and folks at Facebook to travel around the world and meet with people who are actually using the products that they're building, because I think it's really hard if you just sit in an office all day to build something that a ton of people around the world are going to use. I mean, cultures are so diverse. People are different. People need different things. People's lives are very different, and the conditions that people live in around the world are very different and unique. So that's just part of how Facebook's philosophy has approached trying to build stuff for everyone in the world. But you're absolutely right that there needs to be a bigger focus on faster apps that require less data to use, and that's a big part of what we've pushed on with internet.org. In the last year, we've made some progress. The Facebook app alone now takes 1/10 the amount of data, so therefore that both consumes less data that you're paying for and is faster because you're only downloading 1/10 as much data as it did just 1 year ago. So, or a year and a half ago at this point. So we're continuing to push on that. We think that there's even more that we can do, and there are more that a lot of the other apps that you use can do as well.
Another question from the room. Okay, let's go over here.
Hey, Mark. My name is Hernan. I'm from Ojalá. Mark, what is something that you believe about Facebook that most people may disagree with you? Or most people won't believe the same thing about it?
I think the biggest thing that I believe that people might disagree or not give us credit for is that we really care about our community and our mission. You know, when I was starting Facebook, I wasn't thinking about it as a business. I wanted to connect the people in my community around me, and when that worked, I started expanding it and tried to connect more and more people. And you know, to this day, that really is the thing that drives me. And you know, our culture at the company is just all about connecting the world, giving everyone a voice. And one of the things that makes me sad when I read it is when people interpret our actions through the lens of, oh, they're just trying to do that to make money, right? Or they're just trying to do that to, I don't know, do something related to business that actually isn't how we actually think about the world. And, you know, I mean, we get it all the time. So, I mean, for example, internet.org, one of the questions that people ask is this, you know, just a way for you to get more people on Facebook? You know, I can promise you that if what I cared about was making more money, I would take the engineers and the people who are working on internet.org and spreading connectivity around the world and have them go work on our ads products, right? But we don't do that because we believe in connecting everyone around the world, and that's why we're here, and this is our mission. You know, I mean, similarly, I think that there was a question before that I thought was a really good question about our philosophy around how we work with different governments and whether we'll respect a law or just let Facebook be blocked in a country. And I think a lot of people, when they see how we act, assume that we're doing what we're doing because that's just in our business interest to do so. Whereas I actually think if you look at our actions consistently over a period of time, what you'll find is that we're incredibly mission-oriented, and really our compass as a company is all about connecting people and making it so that our services can be available to the most people as possible, and so we can give everyone around the world a voice. And so yeah, if I could snap my fingers and convince people of one thing that I've had a hard time doing over the last 10 years, it's probably that.
Okay, back to the thread. We have a question submitted by Marcos Ferreira de Oliveira, all the way from Brazil. And the question is, bullying is a real problem in the world, around the world, especially in social networks. People are affected on a daily basis. Could Facebook include a button marking bullying posts?
Yes, and in fact we do. And you know, bullying is a really important issue. It's not just an internet issue, although it is also an internet issue now, but it's an issue that parents and teachers and internet services and all the products that people use really are responsible for coming together and helping to address. And there are a lot of things that we've done. I mean, we have a safety center that parents and teachers and people who feel like they might be being bullied can go to get resources for and the help that they need. It's available in a lot of different languages around the world, including Spanish. Probably the biggest thing that we've done, though, is we've built this set of products that we call social reporting. And what this means is that if you don't like a piece of content, you can mark it and you can say how it makes you feel. And that's really important because, you know, the typical way that companies have dealt with this in the past is you can flag a piece of content as bad or maybe say it violates some policy, but people don't typically think in terms of policies, they think in terms of how they feel. And one of the things that we found is that, you know, let's say someone posts a photo that I don't like. Maybe it's against our policies or maybe it isn't, but if I tell that person through, you know, I click, I don't like this, and then I click, okay, it makes me feel embarrassed. or ashamed, or I don't like how I look in this photo, or whatever the reason is that's very human in how I want to express it, what we find is that actually the person who posted it, upon hearing how the other person feels, often just takes it down, right? Because a lot of the time people don't know how they're making other people feel, and when that's expressed in human terms, that can actually get resolved without having to get escalated to our community team, or to a teacher, or to a principal in a school, or anything like that. So, those flows, the social reporting flows, are used millions of times a week. And that's something that I think we're really proud of, that we've enabled. We were the first company to build that into our products. We did a lot of research that showed that that was going to be a good way to help people address content that they didn't like. And it helps people get a turnaround much faster than they would have to get if they had to complain to either Facebook or their parents or teachers about some content that they saw online. But bullying is absolutely a big issue, and we take this really seriously. And anyone who has feedback on how we could do better here, we always want to hear more and do better.
Another one from the page, this one from Mats Jurgensen in Copenhagen. You launched a way to help find missing kids on Facebook this week in the United States. Will these be available for other countries as well?
Yeah, so we really care about our community, right? And making sure that everyone in our community is healthy and safe. And we want to build tools not just to help people in our community stay connected with their friends and family, but also to make sure that this community can be a force for good in the world. And one of the things that we saw, dating back to a couple of years ago, was that when people would see something bad happening in the world, if they saw that there was a child missing, or that a friend needed help with something, they'd post it on Facebook, and they'd try to get attention, and they'd spread it through their friends and their network. And it was really inspiring to see this. And what we realized was, we can actually make this a lot better for people. We can make it so that there's a specific tool where people can very easily report if they've seen someone who's missing, and that can link directly into the police, and that could help people find these kids who have either been lost or abducted. So we plugged in the US to this Amber Alerts program. And it's been this great program that, since it was founded, has helped find, I think it's hundreds of lost kids. Now, it started off in the US, because that's where this program was, but we'd love to bring this everywhere in the world and to work with local law enforcement and local programs to bring this to everywhere. But the bottom line here is, we're doing this because we really want to keep everyone in our community safe, and we want to make sure that our community is a force for good in the world.
We now have a video question sent to us by Klaus Schneemelch from Colombia. And the question is, what was the exact moment where you got the inspiration to create Facebook?
I don't think that's how the world works. One of the biggest things that I think the media gets wrong about building companies, or really kind of any kind of breakthrough, right, whether it's academic or political or any kind of idea, is, first of all, ideas typically do not just come to you. They happen because you've been talking about something or thinking about something and talking to a lot of people about it for a long period of time, and it's a lot of different dots that you connect to make it so that you finally realize that you can potentially do something, and then you start working on it and realize that maybe it actually will work. The other thing that I think is equally wrong is that a lot of times the media makes it sound like one person or a small number of people did something, right? So it drives me a bit crazy when people say that's like, I made Facebook. It's like, yeah, me and thousands of other people, and then millions of people using our products built the community. So I don't know. I think it's very simplistic to say that, I was just sitting around one day and I came up with this idea, and then we had a community of 1 billion people, and it's like, wow, that was easy. I guess I can go home now. That's just not how anything works in the world. And the problem with that narrative is I think it's really discouraging to people to do their own things, because it makes you feel like, hey, I haven't had my moment where I had a genius moment, and maybe I'm not as good as these people who clearly he built a whole company all by himself, right? But I mean, that's not how it works, right? I mean, I really do believe that you can sit down with a group of friends and start talking about something and working on it. And if you're passionate about it and you keep on focusing on it, there will be challenges along the way. But I actually think this stuff a lot of the time is not as crazy and challenging as the media makes it sound. And it actually is more accessible to more people to make a difference in the world and build stuff and start different businesses and all kinds of stuff than I think you'd believe from reading the media. So, I don't know. That's my take on that.
So we go back to the room.
Hi, Mark. My name is Daniela, and I come from the English school. Okay, so my question is, well, I have two, but I will ask one of them. I'm deciding which one. Okay, my English teacher will kill me for not asking this. How can you keep that passion for Facebook each day? Like, the other day we were talking with my best friend, and we were like, if I build a company, I will get tired, and I will just sell it or destroy it or, fire all the people. And, we normally used to close Facebook and 2 days later open it again because we just get bored, and then we miss Facebook, so we open it again. So how do you do for not getting bored?
Well, I just feel really lucky, right? I mean, it's, I think, even though I think that a lot of people can build different things, there is also a lot of luck involved in building something like Facebook. And, there was no reason, going back to the beginning of Facebook, why a group of college students should have been able to build this network and this community that got so big and international, right? Some company that knew way more about building things should have done that, right, instead. So there was definitely a lot of luck that involved in the fact that we ended up being the people to do it. But part of that now, I just feel a lot of gratitude, right? Because I've been able to play this role in helping to connect people and, help people stay connected to the people that they love, help people learn about and experience new moments from people who they can't be in touch with, reconnect with their family, just learn about all this important stuff. And I don't know, I just think you can't take that for granted, right? So I'm in this really lucky position that very few people around the world get to be in. And I guess my perspective on this is I have to wake up every day and make the most of this position and try to serve our community the best that I can and continue building the best tools and the best products that people need to stay connected and push the limits more to connect even more people. Because, I don't know, just it's pretty rare to be in the position that I'm in. And I don't know, that's pretty special. So I try not to take that for granted, and I don't. I do feel extremely lucky to be in the position to be able to help the world in this way, and I want to make sure that I live up to our potential.
Another one from the room.
Okay, well, I'm Stephanie from ISEC, and I wanted to ask you, how do you imagine Facebook in 10 years? According, for example, to technology like Google Glass or things like that, how do you imagine the Facebook community?
Yeah, so I think that there are a few different big trends over the next 10 years that are going to shape how we all connect and share. So the first one, which we're talking about with internet.org, is that way more people can be on the internet. Right? If now about a third of the world is on the internet, I would really hope that by 10 years from now, I don't know, the vast majority of people, more than 2/3 of people should be on the internet. And that won't happen if we don't push on it and if we don't work on that specifically. The internet is actually growing at a slower rate than you would think for how much it defines a lot of parts of modern life. But I hope that in 10 years from now, when we're here, the vast majority of people in the world are on the internet, which I think will change a lot of aspects of how people communicate around the world by itself. Now, then the tools that people use to communicate will also be different. Right, so right now, we have Newsfeed, right, so you can broadcast something out to all of your friends or communicate in public. You have groups, so you can maintain smaller group connections for your family or classes that you're in, or just kind of small groups of friends. You have messaging, which is huge. I mean, WhatsApp is extremely well used, and messaging on Facebook and text messaging are, I mean, people send billions and billions of messages a day, right? I mean, it's such an important piece of communication tool that people are using. And I think what you're going to see is 10 years out, there are just going to be even more tools like this, right? The diversity of the ways that people want to share, the moments that people want to communicate, and the tools that people need to stay connected are just going to keep growing. So, you know, maybe Facebook, you could say a few years ago, is the only big social company, but I think in the future there are going to be a bunch of companies that are doing great work, and Facebook will evolve to build a lot of these products ourselves, right? So we have the Facebook product, we also have Messenger. There's also, I mean, WhatsApp joined us, and Instagram joined us, and Groups is a big product, and there are going to be a lot of things like that I think are each going to be kind of big, important new ways that people are sharing. And then the third thing that you mentioned is new platforms, right? So every 10 to 15 years, there's, you know, 10 to 15 years ago, the primary way that people were connecting to the internet or using computing devices was on computers. They sat at a desktop, and maybe you had a laptop computer, but it was a computer. And now, mobile phones are clearly the main way that we all communicate. But they will not be the last way that we do computing, right? And in another 10 to 15 years, I think we can imagine that there will be another platform which is even more natural and even more built into our lives than mobile phones are, right? So just like you couldn't carry around a computer, now you have a phone in your pocket and you can use it pretty frequently. I think it's pretty easy to imagine that in the future we will have something that either we can wear, and maybe it'll look like just normal glasses, so it won't look weird like some of the stuff that exists today. And you'll just be able to have context about what's going on around you in the world and communicate with people and not have to disrupt your conversations by looking down or be interruptive. And I think that that's going to be really powerful. Now, it's going to take a while to get there. I mean, you guys all remember the first mobile phones were terrible, right? And that's kind of the stage that we're at now with virtual reality and augmented reality. It's just extremely early stage, and the early stuff is very, very rough still. But I think that's going to be a really important trend. And if we look back, I don't know if it's going to be 10 years or 15 or 20, but there will be another platform after computers that becomes the primary computing platform. And we're really excited to build that as well. We're working on that with Oculus, which is, I think, by far the leader in virtual reality at this point, and is going to be very exciting to see how that develops.
Okay, so we have time for one, maybe two more questions. I'm going to go over here.
Hi, Mark. My name is Andres. I'm an entrepreneur here in Colombia. Facebook and WhatsApp and social media is connecting people all around the world, but maybe you think is also disconnecting them from the present moment and from the physical world. For example, at this very moment, there's a lot of people who's checking their phones and they aren't paying attention to my question. So, what do you think about that?
I think that it's overwhelmingly positive. So, I mean, it's, you know, what we've seen on Facebook is that, you know, take newsfeed and messaging and things like that, right? So newsfeed for me, and I think for so many of us, is a good way to stay connected to people who we otherwise would not be able to be connected with, right? So I typically do not learn about important moments in my wife's life through a Facebook post, right? I mean, she'll tell me that in person, or if we're not together, then she'll send me a text message through Messenger or WhatsApp. You know, and that's like my parents. I'll message all the time. So what I think that basically this software is not replacing your ability to communicate with the people that you care about. What it's doing is augmenting and making it so that you can now stay connected to even more people than you would have been able to before. And you know, there's this definition of technology, which is that it extends some natural human sense, right? So in that sense, you could say that glasses or contact lenses extend the natural human capacity for vision, right? Or you know, a car or bicycle extend your capacity to walk and move around. Even the word computer I mean, it comes from the Latin root to think together, right? And it's the point of a computer is to extend your ability to think and do more intellectual tasks. And what I think that Facebook and social software do are extend people's natural capacity to maintain relationships with people. So the people that I could have before maintained a relationship with or communicated with, I'm probably still going to do that in real life, because that's such a richer medium than anything that you can do with text or just a single photo or a course video or anything like that. But now you have this set of tools where you can just stay connected to so many more people that otherwise just would have been impossible. And I don't know, I think that that's awesome. And it helps keep humanity closer together. It helps you have more understanding about what's going on in more people's lives. And I think that that contributes to this greater empathy and tighter knit community around the world, which I think is a really important thing for the modern world.
Last question.
Hi, Mark. My name is Manuel. I want to ask you about the security skills in Facebook for now and the future, because we read every day in the newspaper, watch on the TV, cyber attacks. And what do you think about this for your security in your red and for the users in the different countries? Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. It's a great question. I mean, security on Facebook and on the internet in general is extremely important, and it's something that I think everyone in our community really cares about. And a lot of people are sharing, they're sharing important moments from their life that they want to make sure are secure and are kept private, and that only the people who they want to see them can see them. They also want to make sure that they don't get lost, right? So that if you upload a photo and you're storing it with a service like Facebook, and then an issue happens in some data center, I mean, people are trusting us that we're going to hold on to their important moments and keep them for them so that they'll always be there. And that's something that we just take really seriously. And you can imagine that Facebook now, because it's one of the biggest communities in the world, is, folks are constantly trying to hurt people who are part of our community. And we just have an enormous effort at the company to make sure that everyone has a good experience, right? And, people aren't trying to copy or mimic or hurt in any way the people who use our service. They can't break into our service or anything like that. But it's not something that you can just build some features and then it's solved. It's a continually evolving issue that we just will continue to work on, because it's something that's very important for our community. But I'm very happy with our record so far on this. And it's something that our community always tells us very clearly that we need to keep focusing on more and more, because privacy and security are always at the top of the list of things that people expect from us and all of the products that we're building. So, all right. Well, thank you for all coming out. The questions today were really good and hard, so thank you for that. It's really been an honor to be with you here today in Bogota. I'm really excited about what we're doing with Internet.org and with Facebook. I've learned a lot from your questions today, and I look forward to continuing the dialogue. We'll have more of these Town Hall Open Q&As, and you're free to tune in to all of them, and I look forward to continuing to hear more. So thank you for all coming out.